Hey everybody, welcome to the Buffalo Leap. I've got my good friend Janet with me. She is going to sit here and visit with us a little bit today. We got to take a tour of the Buffalo Leap.
It was wonderful.
What did you think?
Oh my gosh, it felt like you took in a deep breath and you were just breathing in something that you didn't even know what it was. It energized you, Darren.
It does. There's natural energy here, and thank you for saying that. It was fun, and it's fun to have you come and go through it. It's an old place in time, and this is our studio, and Janet's a dear friend of mine, and for a number of years, her not knowing, but me knowing, I love to bounce ideas off of her because she's honest and she gives me direction when I need it. So thanks for coming today.
Oh, it's wonderful to be here, Darren. What an intriguing person you are. And the energy that you exude is amazing.
Thank you.
We feel it, yes.
I have had you and some other dear friends that are behind us here watching it, and my buddy Justin Bilby. They all say, Darren, you got to kind of tell your story a little bit. And you told me today, you said, Darren, you got to get it out. Mm-hmm. So you said that you might have a question. What was your question?
You know, I actually have a lot of questions, Darren.
Okay.
But one thing I want to talk about today is your health. The other day when I saw you, I said, Darren, you look so wonderful today. What has happened?
I had a journey, and it was a long journey. And 2023, July, I got the great news that I was cancer-free. I did not advertise it because if you know me, I didn't want to bring any attention to me, and it's not good for business. And so I didn't bring it up, but that's what it was, and that's what you were seeing. Mm-hmm. I've had a little bit of a health challenge my whole life. I'm going to tell a little bit of it. When I was in elementary school or so, my parents were cutting wood by Yellow Jacket Pass. It's between Pagosa and Durango or Bayfield. And I'm little, not in school, and we get in a hornet's nest, and I get stung by probably 100 wasps. And it was that time we didn't know what it was. So my parents just take me, set me on the tailgate, and then you go about cutting the wood in their days because you really don't know. And a neighbor of mine said, don't hold it against them. They didn't know what to do. And I never did. But that's when my body started to kind of change. I got mono and some other things. And then in elementary school, the reason I'm telling this is people out there that have challenges, we all do. And we think that, how do you deal with it? Well, I became allergic to a lot of things. High altitude, milk. If I drank any milk, it would, I was telling some friends the other way today, I said, Mr. Ornella, who was the principal at Florida Mesa in Durango, if you didn't drink your milk, he would come over, and it was old school principal. Like, he could hit your knuckles. And I drank a milk, and then I get sick, and I puke all over the school table. So then I'd have to go out, and you've got to learn where I'm going with it. Winners win. You've got to learn how to navigate. So not having any milk. And so I didn't have the milk carton to jam all my food in when I was a kid, but I had to go out and get a drink of water at the water fountain. Mm-hmm. So at that younger age, I'm learning how to adapt because milk was not an option. It didn't matter if somebody drank it or if they got along with it, no option. Regurgitate it up. And so those bee stings, they changed my life from right then. And Janet and I have got to experience some wonderful things at the Buffalo Leap. Mm-hmm. That day I saw the Holy Spirit. And when he looks at you and says, this is going to be your path, and you get to see him, I was so blessed. I wasn't quite sure what it was, but I knew it was something higher. And so I got to see him right then. And I'll share other times in my life where I got to see him. And so that was where things kind of started with that. And I go through school, and everything is, you learn how to adapt with it and what you can eat, what you can't eat. And the second major turning point in my life was probably, and I'll get this in a smaller story. When I'm in junior high, my dad gets cancer, gets sick. They decide through a lot of misdiagnoses. It's a challenge. They had a lot of misdiagnoses. So they end up going to Seattle to do a bone marrow transplant, him and my mom. My younger brother goes and stays with my Uncle Dick and Darla. And my older brother was graduating high school and kind of going on. So last day, I drive to school. I've lived on my own, so I drive to junior high. And my dad is in charge of the transportation. So at the bottom of Smiley is Grego's Taco Shop. So Grego family has a restaurant and a taco shop. And so most of the ladies knew my dad and knew he had cancer. So I knew they wouldn't tell on me for driving. So thank you, all the Grego and Garcias, for letting me park at the taco shed. So I park down there and I walk up to school. And I feel pumped up because here I'm in junior high and I'm driving to school. And I'm hiding the car down there. But I'd been driving for a number of years. Then the last day of school, I break my ankle playing basketball. So we're playing basketball. I break it. My folks luckily gave me a sheet that was a release letter. So I drive the Subaru to the doctor, get my ankle cast, and go home, and school's out. So now I'm on crutches. And to frame it a little bit, I've got 4-H calves. And so you got to feed them twice a day. So I've got the crutches and the buckets. And I've always been a risk taker. So I talked, begged, whatever, got my mom and my grandma Frances, who I loved, to help finance on some cattle. So we take 100 yearlings in, and so we're flood irrigating these. Well, it's me. There ain't nobody else there. There's no one. And so you lay the canvases and you flood irrigate, and then I'm on crutches. So you're doing this and you're feeding. And so I had a lot of friends. Durango was a fun town, so I had cowboy friends. I had sports friends. I had hippie friends. I had all the friends. And then when you've got a bachelor pad in junior high, I had a lot of parties, and it was fun. So Janet, this is where it gets interesting. I'm flood irrigating. You put the canvas in, it goes out. One night I'm hustling to get my canvases done and get ready to get back to the house to eat that cereal, because that's what I fixed. And then a storm comes, and the water all runs downhill. And so you flood it, and it's going down. And I could get, I'm getting a little juice thinking about it. You get about 2 inches of water that spills out. The lightning is hitting, and I'm thinking I got to hurry. The next thing I know, I kind of wake up, and from where the ditch is, I'm 12 feet back to where the krell is. And from being there every day, I know that something's not right. Well, the lightning hit the water and runs up it, and then hits my crutches. Boom. And it just blows me back. And I'm sitting there, and I'm trying to gather it back, and things are a little sketchy. I can't see real good. The storm is still going, and I can feel the Holy Spirit, and he just says, what are you going to do? You got to get up and go, or you don't. It's up to you. Whatever you want to do, you got to decide. And I went, I got a party. I got all these people showing up. I got all these friends, but it changed my eyesight. It changed the way I process things. And that day really changed it. And I learned right away that you can't tell everybody. You tell them, I got struck by lightning. The way our minds work, if it hasn't happened to us, it's hard to understand unless you can see, like you hear me a lot of times on Winners Win, you got to see it from different angles. Yourself, your grandparents, someone else, a neighbor, somebody that's not Caucasian. And I'm looking at it going, it changed my life forever, but I could feel the Holy Spirit. And he was a little strong.
Absolutely.
Yes.
I think that's a little strong for the Holy Spirit.
Yeah.
For the bolt of lightning.
Yeah.
That's amazing.
And so that changed that. But I had the other thing is I had no option. My parents are gone. And this is for everybody that's raising kids. You can't baby them. You can't grab them. I got to go through that situation and beat it myself to beat the other ones when I get later in life, and taking risks were no big risk at all. But that was a turning point at 8th grade there.
8th grade.
Yeah.
I can't imagine. So early on, you had a turning point, which was the bee stings.
Yes.
And the Holy Spirit was telling you, I think, there's something here, Darren, that you have to preserve. And then later when the lightning struck you, my goodness, the way you reacted.
It was interesting. The
Uh-huh.
second time when it hit, we're here at the house and it's summertime, no clouds. A cloud just built, and I can feel it. Like
Mm-hmm.
I can feel it. I'm getting really tense now thinking about it. And the storm starts building, and at this time, I wanted to get all the vehicles in the Quonset. So I'm hustling, getting everybody get the vehicles in. So we get them in, and then the storm starts building more and more, but it's just right here. And I say, hey, look at the radar. Nothing on the radar. And I can feel it. My body's starting to jump. I'm seeing almost flashbacks. And the next thing I know, I get Tan and the kids in the house. And I went to check something else, and then it hits. And it hits a big tree right by the house, breaks the limb down, and hits the life power, pulls it out. So now we've got life power. And I'm still outside. And all I can think is I go inside and I go, I got to go back out. So I go back out and I go down to the breaker and shut it off. And everything switched. But I always have people that it's hard to understand and it's hard to explain. The best way to explain it, Janet, is it's like I aged backwards. It's not like a compound fracture where, oh, shoot, my leg's broken half. We got to put a splint on. Like the eyesight starts going up and things just start like an old Ford pickup. Your blinkers don't work and this stuff doesn't work. And it was interesting because it changed everything. It changed my body overnight. No more having adult beverages, no more anything that wasn't natural. And so that's been 8 or 9 years or 10 years. I still sleep on a buffalo hide because I've got to desensitize out. And it was an experience that I wouldn't want anyone to ever have to go through. I almost believe somewhere in life I said, hey, I'll take it.
Wow.
I'll do it for whoever because I've been with agriculture and animals enough and seen enough dead cows and horses from lightning. It's tough to beat it. It gets them.
It really is amazing that it's left you like you are, but with the impressions and the almost spiritual feelings that you have from that, Darren.
Yes, absolutely. Like I'm supposed to be right here for this moment. Business was really good for a few years, and then when it got me, it slowed down. I went from 100 phone calls a day to not using a cell phone to not using a computer. I was really blessed. I had some great friends that told me get to Mexico. So I go down there, and I'll do that all on another segment because it's very crucial. They've got 5G microscope, they have stem cells, they have ozone, and that's what got my eyesight back and a lot of things like that. But it was the Holy Spirit that just leads you that way. And I think for myself, and I'm sharing this because me included, I get in a hurry sometimes instead of living in the moment and following which way he wants. And he just slowed up. You got to slow up.
Seems like you were grabbed like that in the moment.
Yeah.
And whatever has happened since then has been, you put a lot of thought into it and a lot of your spirit as well as the Holy Spirit.
Yes. And thank you. And it's an interesting path, and we're all on a long path. And so that's why this winter's win is fun. And today is so special because we had a great day. And I had a lot of friends say, Darren, you got to explain it. And so in a nutshell, those 3 events changed the way my body was. And I don't carry change. I carry rocks. My pockets are full of rocks, completely full of rocks. And it's changed the clothes I had to wear, the perfume. If it's not natural, it doesn't agree with me. And my encouragement to everybody is you always think, I can't do it. You can. I've only drank well water for 8 years.
Wow.
Maybe 10. If I go into a restaurant, I take my own. And at first it was different, but the taste I have to have or it doesn't work. And so when you think I can't do it, you can. You can really do anything if you want to. And I've learned to love water and taste it and good. And it reminds me of my granddad, Ed Bramwell. He always said, Darren, I don't mind pinto beans. I ate them for 8 years. I still like them today. And I always think about my granddad and going, wow. And so all the things we get to eat in this day and time, but 8 years he only ate pinto beans, but he still likes them. And so that's that.
That kind of makes me think of something that you said your your grandfather told you, which was so interesting to me about thinking.
Yes.
And I think that's what you've been doing through this whole thing is you've been telling us about your experiences.
Yes.
Tell about the thinking part.
My granddad Ed was wonderful. In my Winners We Win speech, if you ever want the speech, I go to schools, all sorts of different places, and it's how I start the speech off. My granddad Ed grew up in Echo Canyon, which is between Pagosa Springs and Cromo. 14 kids in a one-room logging camp. His dad, Jake Bramwell, was a laborer, but he helped build the United States Capitol in Denver. So he builds the Capitol as part of it. He's has a team and skids marble. Then he rides horseback to Pagosa and gets a job at the logging camp. And my granddad Ed always said, I wish I could have went to school longer, but after third grade, I had to get a job. And so that's who my granddad Ed was. He was tough. And one other good story about my granddad Ed, I have thousands. At night, him and my grandma would sit in these green chairs, and he would massage his feet. He'd take off work boots, and he'd pull off his thin socks, and he'd massage his toes every day. And I said, Granddad, why are 3 of your toes black? And he's 70 years old this time. He says, when I was 8 years old, we had a bad winter. I lost 3 of my toes that year. Never complained, walks around with 3 dead toes, and he just massages them and goes. And so at Cromo, I was lucky. The ranch was gorgeous. It's like a movie. You gather the horses, cross the river, they go into the corral, you sort off what you want, you milk the cows, people are doing the hay, there's Indians and Spanish, everybody's working together. And then, so my granddad, I wanted to ride with him because he knew where the cattle were. He knew where they were. Everyone would spend all day gathering, and Granddad Ed just rode to where they were. He knew where they were. So we get up high, Janet, and I'm circling back to it, and he says, Darren, get off your horse. I remember the spot. I could go there today. And so uncinch, loosen it up, sit down. And he makes me sit down. And he gets a drink of whiskey. He liked whiskey. There was no one around to see him or get after him. So he has a couple drinks, and then he goes, probably the greatest advice I've ever had. He says, Darren, do your own thinking. Don't let a school, a church, a teacher, your parents, a friend, a neighbor, anyone do your thinking. You make your own decision. You think it through, but do your own thinking. Don't let anyone do your thinking. Now get up. And now you're back to that clip of going fast because it's agriculture and you're racing the sun. So we get back up and I'm going, I'm a little kid. It's just a story. And the older I get, the more I reflected, and I got to hear it a few times, and it was the place. We're just about to timberline. It's where at one time in history there was an old corral where they would steal the horses and run them over to Antonito, Colorado. And so it's an old place, but I remember the place, and it's probably the best advice I ever had. Do your own thinking. And so I was lucky to have my granddad part of my life, and my grandma was wonderful too. But thanks for asking me about that. It's probably the best advice for anybody. If I ever get to catch kids or at a school, that's the story I want to tell.
That is a very powerful story. It left quite an impression on me.
Well, thank you.
You're welcome.
He was an interesting guy. Granddad Ed was tough. 14 kids. I was proud of him. He was one of the few that was a non-alcoholic. It was a tough time for alcoholics, agriculture. Every series has those. And he always took pride in not being an alcoholic. And my grandma was really hard-nosed. She wouldn't accept that.
Yeah.
And so, but that's my story. And then my grandma was wonderful too. Her mother died in childbirth. And her dad, Grant Shahan, hands her the ledger to the stores and says, you run the ranch, I'll run the stores. And they had a merchant in Chama, and a lot of gritty people came from that group.
Oh, I bet.
And we're a deep rodeo family. We have multiple. I have a lot of first cousins that go to the finals and do that, and they all came from that Promo Valley.
That's quite a history. That's
Yeah.
amazing. What a story, Darren.
Thank
you for sharing that with us
Oh,
today.
you bet.
I love
Thank
it.
you.
Mhm.
We'll touch more back on this on Winners Win, and there's the story a lot of people have been asking for. I hope it helps you in your life somewhere, or you see something, and I just hope you realize you can do anything you put your mind to. There was a few years where I couldn't drive, I couldn't see, and that's all fixed. The cancer's gone, and if you go to Mexico and you have the Holy Spirit will guide you where you've got to go if you're looking for the right thing.
Wow. Thank you so much, Rick.
Thank you, Jen.